Kurt thought he had everything: a loving wife, a perfect life. But when he uncovered the shocking truth behind his wife's betrayal, his world came crashing down. What happens when the trust you've built your life on is shattered? Watch the emotional journey of a man broken by betrayal, seeking revenge, and ultimately discovering that healing comes from within. Can Kurt rebuild his life, or will he forever be haunted by the past? The fragility of trust in relationships is something many of us take for granted, until the moment it begins to crack. Kurt McCarthy had always believed in the unwavering bond he shared with Catherine. They had been together since their high school days, growing up side by side through the awkwardness of adolescence and the challenges of young adulthood. Their relationship seemed like a testament to the idea that love, when nurtured and respected, could endure. But as Kurt would soon realize, trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to repair. Kurt's love for Catherine had always been steadfast, grounded in mutual respect, shared memories, and the belief that they were partners in every sense of the word. From their teenage years, when they exchanged shy glances at school dances, to their marriage and the life they built together, it seemed like they were invincible. They had faced challenges like any couple, but each time, they grew stronger. They shared their dreams, their fears, and their ambitions, everything that made them feel connected. But as the years passed, a subtle shift began. What was once easy and comforting now felt strained, and it was a shift that Kurt couldn't quite understand at first. The cracks began to appear in small, almost imperceptible ways. Catherine's moods, once predictable and easy to navigate, grew erratic. She would sometimes lash out in anger over trivial matters, and her once sharp temper, which Kurt had always known, seemed to flare more often than before. In the past, when they argued, it was just a temporary storm. But now, it felt like the clouds were gathering for something far more permanent. Their communication, once open and full of warmth, became strained. Kurt tried to talk to her, but every attempt was met with frustration and silence. The Catherine he had known for so long, his best friend, his partner, seemed distant, almost like a stranger. It was in the midst of this growing tension that Kurt first noticed the subtle signs of something far more troubling. Catherine had become distant, emotionally unavailable, and at times, downright cold. It wasn't the occasional argument or even the heated disagreements about their finances or future, it was the moments of silence, the ones that spoke volumes without a single word being exchanged. These silences, filled with unspoken words, became more frequent. Kurt found himself walking on eggshells, unsure of how to approach his wife, unsure of how to fix what felt like a fading connection. Kurt had always prided himself on the strength of their bond, on the trust they shared. He believed, perhaps naively, that nothing could shake the foundation they had built. After all, they had been through so much together. The years of early struggle, the shared financial challenges, the late nights working at their respective jobs, all of it had created a life together that felt unshakable. They had weathered the early storms of marriage, raised children, built a home, and created a future. But this new tension, this new undercurrent, was different. It gnawed at Kurt's sense of security, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. It was on a quiet Wednesday evening that the first real sign of betrayal emerged. Catherine had been acting distant for weeks, and Kurt had tried everything he could to reach her. He asked her what was wrong, but she deflected every question with a quick change of subject. Their once carefree conversations had turned into a battleground of misunderstandings. And then, that evening, while Kurt was walking through the house, he caught a glimpse of her phone, a text message that would change everything. The text was brief, but the words were like a punch to his gut. So did he do it? The message wasn't from him. It was from someone named Carl. Kurt's heart sank as he felt a wave of nausea wash over him. The implications of that single text message were undeniable. His mind raced as he tried to rationalize what he had just read. Could it be a misunderstanding? Was Catherine merely joking, or was this something more? But deep down, Kurt knew that this wasn't just an innocent exchange. The words, "did he do it?" rang in his mind, over and over again, each time louder and more insistent. The pain was immediate and intense. Kurt had spent the last few months wondering what had happened to their relationship. He had chalked it up to stress, to the pressures of life, but now he understood that the strain was not just emotional, it was something deeper, something that had been festering for longer than he had realized. Catherine's betrayal wasn't just an isolated incident, it was the culmination of months of emotional distance and unspoken truths. Kurt had always trusted Catherine. He had believed in her, in them, and in their marriage. But now, as the truth began to sink in, he realized that trust was something fragile, easily shattered by lies and deceit. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. The woman he had built his life with, the woman he had shared his deepest fears and dreams with, had betrayed him. And the worst part? He had no idea how long it had been going on. The realization of betrayal is a gut-wrenching experience, one that shakes the very foundation of everything you thought you knew. Kurt was no longer sure of anything. His trust in Catherine had been shattered, and with it, the future they had planned together. What had once felt like a secure, unbreakable bond now seemed like a fragile house of cards, ready to collapse at any moment. Kurt's pain was palpable, but so was his determination. He needed answers, and he needed them now. He couldn't just ignore what he had discovered, he needed to confront Catherine, to face the truth, no matter how painful. He also knew that this moment, the moment of confrontation, would change everything. There would be no going back from this. The betrayal had already torn through their relationship, and there was no way to repair the damage it had caused. But as Kurt prepared for the inevitable confrontation, he couldn't help but feel a sense of sorrow. Not for himself, but for the life he had built with Catherine. The years they had spent together, the memories they had created, now felt like a distant dream. It was as if all of it had been a lie, built on a foundation of trust that had been eroded over time. And now, there was no going back. The damage had been done. As Kurt confronted Catherine, the weight of his emotions bore down on him. The love he had once felt for her was now tainted by betrayal. And yet, as he looked into her eyes, he couldn't help but see the woman he had fallen in love with, the woman who had once shared his dreams. It was a painful realization, one that left him feeling more lost than ever. How could he ever trust again? The question lingered in the air, unspoken but ever present. Could he ever truly trust anyone again? Could he ever rebuild the life he had once envisioned, a life full of love, trust, and mutual respect? Or would he forever be haunted by the ghosts of past betrayals, left to pick up the pieces of a broken heart? The emotional journey Kurt was about to embark on was just beginning. But as he took that first painful step forward, he knew one thing for sure: trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. The journey would be long, and the pain would be deep, but it was the only path he could take. And it all began with that one moment, when the fragile bond of trust was broken beyond repair. Para major en nuestras mañanas y, por ende, nuestra calidad de vida, basta con realizar algunos ajustes sencillos en nuestra rutina diaria. Como hemos visto a lo largo de este artículo, muchas veces los hábitos matutinos pueden ser la raíz de muchos de nuestros problemas. Errors tan comunes como saltarse el desayuno, no beber suficient agua o no tomarse un tiempo para conectarse consigo mismo pueden tener un impacto negativo en nuestra energía y bienestar a lo largo del día. Cambiar estas costumbres, aunque parezca un pequeño esfuerzo, puede transformar significativamente nuestra salud y estado emocional. Imagina por un momento el poder de despertar con energía, sintiendo que tu cuerpo y mente están listos para enfrentar los retos del día. En lugar de arrastrarse fuera de la cama con cansancio, podrías levantar con la vitalidad necesaria para empezar con entusiasmo, con una mente clara y una actitud positiva. Cambiar la forma en que comenzamos el día es un paso fundamental hacia una vida más plena. En el caso de muchas personas, una de las principales barreras para tener una mañana productiva y positiva es la falta de una rutina matutina que las motive. Algunas veces, la falta de tiempo, el estrés acumulado o simplemente la falta de interés en mejorar estas pequeñas cosas, nos lleva a seguir la misma rutina monótona y poco saludable. Sin embargo, Tomar un momento para reflexionar sobre como nos sentimos al despedo y como esa sensación pueda influir en el resto del día, puede ser un primer paso para realizar cambios. Un aspecto clave para mejorar nuestras mañanas es asegurarse de que estamos bien hidratados. Durante la noche, el cuerpo pasa horas sin recibir líquidos, lo que puede llevar a una ligera deshidratación al despertar. Beber un vaso de agua nada más levantarse puede marcar la diferencia en cómo nos sentimos al empezar el día. No solo ayuda a activar el metabolismo, sino que también contribuye a mejorar la digestión y a darle un impulso a la piel y el sistema circulatorio. Además, es un hábito sencillo que cualquiera puede incorporar, sin necesidad de gastar mucho tiempo o esfuerzo. Otro componente esencial es la alimentación. Saltarse el desayuno, que es la comida más importante del día, puede tener efectos negativos tanto a corto como a largo plazo. Un desayuno saludable y equilibrado proporciona la energía necesaria para afrontar el día. Al incluir proteínas, fibra y grasas saludables en la primera comida del día, nuestro cuerpo puede mantener niveles de energía constantes, evitando los bajones de azúcar que pueden generar irritabilidad y cansancio. Elegir alimentos ricos en nutrientes, como avena, frutas, nueces o yogur griego, puede mejorar nuestro enfoque y nuestra capacidad para tomar decisiones inteligentes durante todo el día. No obstante, la clave para transformar nuestras mañanas no solo está en lo físico, sino también en el bienestar emocional. Muchas veces nos levantamos con la mente llena de preocupaciones, pensamientos negativos o listas interminables de tareas por hacer. Esto puede generar un estrés innecesario desde el momento en que abrimos los ojos. Para contrarrestar esto, es esencial dedicar unos minutos por la mañana a la introspección. Ya sea a través de la meditación, la respiración profunda o simplemente tomando un par de minutos para reflexionar sobre lo que agradecemos en nuestras vidas. Estas prácticas pueden ayudar a calmar nuestra mente y a prepararnos emocionalmente para afrontar cualquier desafío. Algunas personas han encontrado en el ejercicio una excelente forma de empezar el día con bien pie. Si bien no es necesario realizar una rutina intensa de entrenamiento en la mañana, el simple acto de estirarse, dar un paseo corto o practicar yoga puede mejorar significativamente el ánimo y la claridad mental. Además, el ejercicio matutino está comprobado que aumenta la producción de endorfinas, las hormonas de la felicidad, lo que puede ayudarnos a empezar el día con una actitud positiva y una mejor disposición para afrontar cualquier situación. En cuanto a la organización de la mañana, otra recomendación importante es preparar las cosas la noche anterior. Al organizar nuestra ropa, los materiales de trabajo o los objetos que necesitamos para la jornada del día siguiente, eliminamos el estrés de la toma de decisiones apresuradas por la mañana. Esto no solo ahorra tiempo, sino que también nos permite comenzar el día de manera más calmada y eficiente. Tener un plan y saber qué esperar puede contribuir a reducir la ansiedad que muchas veces experimentamos al enfrentarnos a una jornada de incertidumbres. Es igualmente importante tener en cuenta el impacto de las relaciones personales en nuestras mañanas. Si la primera interacción que tenemos al despertar es una conversación negativa o conflictiva, esto puede afectar nuestra energía emocional para el resto del día. Por lo tanto, es fundamental rodearnos de personas que nos apoyan y nos inspiran, y es necesario tomar distancia de aquellos que constantemente nos drenan emocionalmente. El ambiente en el que comenzamos el día juega un papel crucial en nuestra disposición para enfrentarlo con una mentalidad positiva. Como mencioné anteriormente, mejorar nuestras mañanas no solo implica un cambio en los hábitos, sino en la forma en que nos relacionamos con nosotros mismos y con el mundo que nos rodea. A veces, un cambio pequeño, como dedicar unos minutos para reflexionar sobre lo que agradecemos o mover el cuerpo de manera ligera, puede tener un impacto significativo en cómo nos sentimos. Estos habidos son el punto de partida hacia una mejor calidad de vida, un mayor bienestar y una mayor productividad. Y lo mejor de todo es que son cambios que podemos empezar a hacer hoy mismo. Por ejemplo, una de las cosas que más impacto tiene en nuestra disposición para afrontar el día es como nos sentimos físicamente. Si nos levantamos con una sensación de rigidez, de agotamiento, o con una mente llena de preocupaciones, es probable que pasemos el resto del día en ese estado. A través de pequeñas acciones, como un vaso de agua al despertar o una breve meditación, podemos reprogramar nuestra respuesta emocional y física a las demandas del día. A medida que nos adentramos en la rutina diaria, es inevitable que surjan momentos de dificultad. Las tensiones, los conflictos y los imprevistos forman parte de la vida, pero como nos preparamos para esos momentos depende en gran parte de cómo empezamos el día. Si comenzamos con un corazón agradecido, un cuerpo en movimiento y una mente tranquila, las situaciones estresantes se perciben con mayor calma y capacidad de resolución. Al final, el poder de transformar nuestras mañanas radica en nuestra capacidad de priorizar lo que realmente importa, nuestra salud, nuestro bienestar emocional y nuestra paz interior. Y estos pequeños hábitos diarios son la ley para crear el tipo de vida que decimos, llena de propósito, energía y satisfacción. El camino hacia una vida más plena no se encuentra en las grandes decisiones, sino en los pequeños pasos que damos cada día, empezando por cómo nos despertamos y lo que decidimos hacer con el primer momento de cada mañana. The weight of betrayal was still fresh on Kurt's mind as he sat in his dimly lit living room, the walls seemingly closing in around him. The divorce papers from Catherine had arrived just a few days ago, and yet, the emotions were still raw. The desire for revenge still burned within him, its embers threatening to consume every ounce of clarity he had. It wasn't just about the affair. It wasn't even the fire she had set in his precious garage, destroying his safe haven, his man cave. No, it was something deeper. The emotional betrayal, the years of trust shattered with a single betrayal, had caused an irreversible fracture. Revenge, it seemed, was the only weapon he had left. Kurt had never imagined his life would come to this. For over 2 decades, he had devoted himself to Catherine, building a life together, raising children, and creating memories that seemed impossible to undo. Now, it all felt like a lie, a house of cards that had crumbled with one ill-fated phone call. The affair had cut him deeper than any physical wound could, and the fire she had set in the garage was the final insult, a calculated act of spite that made him question everything about their life together. The first woman, Shannon, had come into his life unexpectedly. She was kind, but her motives were clear. She was looking for someone to replace Carl, to help her heal from her own betrayal. Kurt, however, wasn't interested in a relationship, he was interested in the feeling of being wanted, of having someone look at him the way he once looked at Catherine. She was young, vivacious, and she made him feel alive again. Their encounters were simple, no strings attached. Shannon was fun, carefree, and didn't ask for anything he wasn't willing to give. For Kurt, she was the perfect distraction. She didn't challenge him, didn't make him question his choices, and most importantly, she didn't make him feel weak. With every night spent in her arms, Kurt could feel a little more of the resentment towards Catherine fade away. It wasn't love, it wasn't even affection, it was just a temporary release from the heavy burden of betrayal. He didn't love Shannon, but he didn't need to. He needed her for something else, empowerment. But it wasn't just Shannon. After their time together, Kurt found himself drawn to other women. Bethany was next, a woman with an air of mystery about her. Her maturity and calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the vibrant energy of Shannon, but Kurt enjoyed the change. Bethany didn't ask about his past. She didn't ask for his heart, she just wanted his time, his body, his attention. Kurt gave it to her, and in return, he felt an immense sense of control over his emotions. He was no longer the victim of betrayal, he was the one who held the power now. However, despite the fleeting nature of these relationships, there was a part of Kurt that couldn't escape his past. No matter how many women he slept with, no matter how many fleeting moments of pleasure he sought, there was one thing he couldn't escape: the ghost of his marriage to Catherine. The hurt, the anger, and the confusion lingered in the back of his mind, poisoning the small victories he had found in these new relationships. Late one evening, as he lay in his bed alone, Kurt's thoughts turned once again to Catherine. The last time they had spoken, she had called him, pleading for him to reconsider, asking for a chance to rebuild their relationship. She was sorry for everything, she claimed. She wanted to make it right. Kurt couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he gave in, if he let her back into his life. Maybe, just maybe, he could find it in himself to forgive her, to give their relationship another chance. But the more he thought about it, the more his resentment bubbled to the surface. His mind raced with the memories, the lies, the betrayal, the countless hours spent in agony trying to piece together what had gone wrong. No, he couldn't go back. He had already given so much of himself to her, and in the end, she had torn him apart. Kurt had realized something that night: he had already moved on. The women, the fleeting moments of satisfaction, they were just part of the process. The healing process. Kurt knew, deep down, that revenge wasn't the answer. It hadn't brought him peace, and it never would. The thrill of getting back at Catherine for her affair, for her betrayal, faded quickly. In its place, the emptiness returned, the same emptiness that had driven him to seek solace in the arms of other women. And so, Kurt made a decision. He would cut ties with Catherine once and for all. No more revenge, no more games. He would no longer use others to fill the hole she had left. Instead, he would focus on rebuilding himself, on finding peace within his own heart. But that wasn't the end of the story. As fate would have it, the universe had a way of putting people back into each other's lives when they least expected it. Just when Kurt thought he had moved on completely, Catherine called again. This time, she wasn't asking for reconciliation. She was asking for closure. She had finally accepted that their marriage was over, that they would never go back to what they once had. As Kurt sat across from her in the restaurant, he could feel the old pangs of love mixed with bitterness. She was still beautiful, still the woman he had once adored. But now, everything had changed. The fire of betrayal had burned so brightly that there was no going back. Catherine apologized again, but this time, Kurt wasn't moved. He had forgiven her in his own way, by letting go. He wasn't the same man who had walked into that marriage years ago. He was stronger now, more sure of who he was, and more aware of the power he had taken back from her. "I've moved on, Catherine," he said softly, his voice steady. "I've forgiven you, but I can't forget what happened. I can't pretend like everything is okay." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but Kurt remained firm. She had made her choices, and so had he. And in that moment, Kurt knew that the path to healing wasn't through revenge, nor through the arms of other women. It was through self-empowerment, through understanding that he was worthy of happiness, of peace, and of love, not because someone else had wronged him, but because he had the strength to move forward. The next few months passed in a blur of new beginnings. Kurt focused on his work and his children, rebuilding his life with a renewed sense of purpose. He found solace in the small moments: quiet nights with friends, laughter with his kids, the satisfaction of a job well done. He also found comfort in his own company, rediscovering passions and hobbies that had long been neglected during his marriage. He had become whole again, not because of anyone else's actions, but because of his own. Meanwhile, Catherine struggled to move on. Her life became a series of empty apologies and failed relationships, each one a reminder of the damage she had done to their family. She tried to rebuild her life, but the cracks in her heart remained. Every time she saw Kurt, whether it was at a family gathering or a chance encounter in town, she was reminded of what she had lost. But as much as she wanted to go back, she knew it was too late. In time, Kurt came to understand that true healing didn't come from the pain of revenge or the comfort of fleeting distractions. It came from embracing the lessons learned, forgiving the past, and embracing the future with open arms. He had learned to love himself again, and that was the key to moving on. And so, Kurt's journey of healing continued, not in the arms of another woman, but in the strength he found within himself. The ghost of his marriage to Catherine no longer haunted him. He had learned that the only person he truly needed to heal was himself.